600,000 people a year disappear in US. How many of these people disappear in the wild is unclear. When you really think about it, that number seems staggering, doesn't it? Who or what are causing these disappearances? Tonight on Into the Static, we examine the Cannibal Caves. Hi, and welcome into the Static. National parks are a getaway for family, friends, company retreats, even survivalist experts. But something is going on in these national parks that are causing thousands of unsolved missing person cases. It's a mystery that has been plaguing researchers and conspiracy theorists for years. Some say they bite off more than they can chew, that they're not prepared, and that they're hiking or camping past their skill level, getting turned around in the bush, or freezing to death without proper equipment. These are all plausible, yet it all doesn't make sense when you really look into it deeper. Let's take a look at a map of the US cave systems. These cave systems span for thousands and thousands of miles and are all over the US. Now, let's add on another map, a map of missing 411 cases. Do you see it? Do you see the correlation? There is a high number of disappearances around these cave systems. It's eerie how it all lines up. These cave systems run for miles and miles, very easy where one person can walk in, get lost if they do not have their bearings with them. But is it simply people wandering into these caves and getting lost? Or could there be something else? Let's say a community of cannibals? Growing up, I would hear stories of this one popular story, Sawney Bean, the Bean family living in a cave in Scotland, picking off merchants and villagers, brutally murdering them or maiming them and dragging them back to the cave to feast. But if you know the story, then you know this is more of a legend than anything. But what if this legend wasn't all fairy tales? Now, I don't mean Sawney Bean, but more that as we advanced as a civilization, a subset of people grew up in these cave systems. It could make sense as to why so many people go missing a year. These people aren't your typical regular Joes either. The majority range from physically fit, people who know the bush or national parks very well, survival enthusiasts, experts, to people living with a disability, and even people with very high IQ levels. You see, it's a wide range of people. Many of these people who are found have one main thing that connects them: their missing clothing. Shoes, shirts, jackets, pants, almost as if someone took them. In many cases like this, strangers kidnap kids for ransom or worse. Estranged parents kidnap kids from former spouses. Crimes lead to disappearances of a clearly criminal nature. Those ones you can make sense of. Then there are missing 411 cases relating to national parks. There is one person who has noticed this and has devoted a lot of his time into investigating these 411 cases: David Paulides. Who is David Paulides? He is a former police officer and now an investigator who has written many books dedicated to the missing 411 conspiracy. David, who has published many books on the subject, introduces us to some very interesting facts. These facts are this: these are much different than other missing person cases. The areas are the important part. These are happening in remote areas like national parks, monuments, and forests. A lot of these cases, federal agencies are not keeping track, or they will not share their information. David documented 52 defined geographic clusters. The Rocky Mountains and Sierra Pacific Range are two areas where cases are concentrated. More hotspots include Colorado, Michigan, Georgia, and Arkansas. Other countries are involved as well, like Canada and Europe. High altitude locations, boulder-strewn landscapes, swamps, berry patches are your typical locations where people go missing as well. What's interesting, a large number of cases involve people who suddenly vanish while hiking, camping, horseback riding, even while with family and friends. One such case is Stacy Arras. It was July 25th, 1981, and 14-year-old Stacy Arras from Saratoga went on a horse riding trip with her father, George. Now, it wasn't just them, but 7 others as well, all going to Sunrise Meadows areas of Yosemite National Park in California. It was a beautiful day out. They spent a few hours horseback riding, and after a while stopped at a nearby cabin. It was around 3 miles southeast of Tenya Lake and 1.5 miles from Sunrise Lakes. The group wanted to freshen up, get some water and food, and stay the night. It's 9,400 feet above sea level, and the last one on the 50-mile-high Sierra Camp Loop. Stacy cleaned herself up, showered, got new clothing, and wanted to go on a small hike just around the area where they were staying. She wanted to take in the natural beauty and take some pictures. Gerald Stewart, an older fellow, was sitting on a boulder 100 feet away. Stacy told her dad she was going on a walk close to where Gerald was sitting. Dressed in her hiking boots, off-white pullover windbreaker, white jersey blouse, and leggings, she was off. Everyone saw her go on a walk over to the boulders. Gerald even offered to accompany her to a nearby lake 1.5 miles away. But this was pretty far for Gerald. After all, he was about 70 to 77 years old. So he got tired and he sat down. The rest of the group, watching from above, saw the man sit down. But Stacy continued on the walk without him, eventually disappearing from sight behind some trees. This was the last time she was seen. 150 people, including 67 Mountain Rescue Association volunteers, sniffer dogs, and helicopters were deployed, concentrating on a 3 to 5 square mile radius around Sunrise Lakes. The only thing they found was the lens cap from Stacy's camera, just inside the tree line from where she walked into the area by the lake. If she was ever found, she would be easy to identify, since after all, she had braces on her teeth. Now, was she snatched by someone lurking in the woods? Possibly by one of these cave dwellers? This is just one case out of thousands, if not millions. Back in 2021, TikTok erupted about what was going on in these national parks. People sharing stories, wanting to share their experiences. One TikToker, the Present Believer, shared her TikTok with everyone. The caption's reading this: "When you remember the night you heard a family screaming for their lives from the mountaintops of an 800k acre national park, and 2 days later, when you asked if everyone was okay, none of the park rangers knew what you were talking about, even though you called the police and they told you the park would handle it." Diving more into this story, I found a few things. She claims she was camping with her husband and daughter in Big Bend National Park. On the 5th day, they stayed a night at the lodge and the basin and hung out on the patio. One point in the evening, they heard multiple people screaming in the distance. A woman screaming, "We're gonna die," and the screaming went on for a while, then abruptly stopped. Then came the next words, "I love you, just know that." Another scream came from what sounded like a child yelling, "Mommy," and "Help, call a park ranger," which she did. The park rangers, looking into this, did not find anything. But when asked the park rangers about this the next morning, they had no idea what she was talking about. Now this goes into one of the theories that's been surfacing around, that the park ranger services and local authorities are covering something up and suppressing what's actually going on in these national parks. Of course, these claims have no backing, and it's all a theory with a deep rabbit hole. But why stop there? Like Alice, let's keep tumbling down this hole together. Bigfoot, aliens, feral people. These are the main theories people believe, with feral people being at the top of the list. Many suggest that those noises that you hear in the missing 411 calls and Sasquatch videos are actually these cannibals making those noises, communicating, letting others of their community know where these hikers, these campers are, waiting for someone to be isolated, and then pounce and drag them away into the cannibal caves. When you think about it, we've never seen a Sasquatch, but we have found clothes of a person miles away from where they were originally taken. The really odd thing is also this: when bodies do show up, and some are finally located, a very high number of these turn up in areas that have already been intensively searched weeks before. Were they looked over, missed somehow? If these were cannibals, you would assume that these people that are found would have missing limbs, chunks torn out of their bodies? That is not the case. The bodies recovered don't have any of this, but the cause of death is usually unknown, even from an autopsy. This is leading some to speculate it could be something else, a cryptid feeding off the fear of someone, or aliens are some way involved. People falling into a time warp, entering into another dimension, which kind of resembles a Bermuda Triangle, but somewhere in these national forests. Let's make one thing clear. Something is happening in these national parks. Mass amounts of people disappearing, and we don't know why. That should be enough to make anyone think twice before camping or hiking. Who am I to say, after all? I am just static.